So we're in the middle of, we're closing out, so to speak, our little series that we've been going through about started off being the best version of you, and then it kind of evolved to the story inside you. And I want to kind of talk, actually what I have today is prophetic. I believe that I'm speaking to us as a house, us to a people, and you'll get my gist as we go along, but it was something God gave me, and I think that I just, more of a teaching today, or it's kind of like you need to be prepared, and this is the preparation of it. If you want to, you can listen to the series. It's on Facebook, right, Dave? Or some of it? YouTube. Well, so everybody but Linda can do this, because Linda's computer's too old and she can't do YouTube, right? So how do they get there? Okay, we will have a slide up that just kind of shows everybody where to go, but basically go to YouTube, and find Canyon Chapel Williams, and it's being updated, and this series is started being put up there. We have covered a massive amount in this area, and you need to listen to it. You need to listen to it. I just want to I'm going to do a couple points foundationally, what we've been going through, so that we're all on the same page as we take that next step. Psalm 139, if you turn there, or we have it up here actually. Psalm 139, one verse actually, I think it's verse 13. It says that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And I love how it starts off. I will praise you. And I think that maybe we need to do that right now. Say, God, I praise you. God, I praise you. Because you made me fearfully and wonderfully. It's not talking about the process that God used to make you. Hello? God, I was done in a Lego style. No. I was made fearfully and wonderfully. That means inputted into you. I praise God. It's something that we need to understand, that we need to grasp, that we just sang a song, that your praises will forever be on my lips. This is one of them. God, you made me fearfully and wonderfully. The fearfully, it's fierce, majestic, a terrifying being with power and might to set things right. Hello? Fearfully. You were fearfully made. Something inside you. Every human. Hello? Every human was made with this creativity inside that is just this awesomeness, this terrible, if you will, but it's not terrible as in terrible for you. It's terrible for those things that keep stuff from being right. It used in the right hands would be terrible for the enemy. You understand what I'm saying? All right. But a terrifying being who walks in with power and might to set things right. Everybody has that in. How many of us, think about it, the news is filled daily all across the nation with men and women who stand up in situations that are not right. Because we have been ingrained something inside us that says, this needs to be made right. Does that kind of click inside your heart? Okay. You know, when we see injustice, we've learned to ignore it. It's not our nature, to ignore injustice. Hello? We may not want to be confrontational. We may not want to get in situational because sometimes it's dangerous. We may not, but inside us is a nature that says this must be made right. We have that power and authority in Christ. Hello? To step in and make things right. And that's what we're going to get to. Okay? The other thing was wonderfully. I love this. It's an amazing, creative, fully equipped being for any situation or circumstance, who has the capability of any solution to bring about the correct situation. So, wonderfully, talks about this amazing being who has all the resources needed, that when the situation has gone wrong, has the solution to bring it back to the right. So not only we are created to step in to make things right, we're given, the resources. Isn't that amazing, those two words, fearfully and wonderfully made? They kind of go hand in hand. You can go into any situation, recognize that it needs to be made right, and through God be supplied with what it needs to make it right. That's in us. So understanding that's our creation, that's our potential, that's who we are. That's part of that story inside us. That's part of this being that we are. That best version of us, when God sees us, if you think about this, just think about what we've talked about, just right there. That we are this resource of God to make things right. Simply put, make things right. He created Adam and Eve. He created us to step into a situation that needed someone who would walk in and make it right. The world needed an answer. Satan had been thrown down from heaven. And where was he thrown? To the world. So God stepped in, and all this chaos and all this stuff that was all over the world, right? And he hovered over the waters, he hugged the world, and he created it. And it says basically, and there was land. And on that land he put Adam and Eve. And he basically said, with creativity, I'm putting you there as a solution to bring about that which needs to be made right. Bring my glory back to the world. Bring God's rightness back to the world. We're problem solvers. Okay, if I can just stop. Our society today may be facing times that we've never faced before. Our society today is probably in more need of problem solvers than ever before. And it may not get any better. Who's been placed on this earth as problem solvers, as resources for God to step into situations and say, we can make things right? Us. This world situation should not cause any fear. Hello? Where we're headed as a society should not cause us any kind of intrepidation, because we were made as problem solvers from the very beginning. God's not up there shaking in his boots saying, I don't know what to do. He said, I've already made the solution for these situations. Do you get that? That's who we are. It's our DNA. It's the basis, the line, the foundation of the story inside us. Every situation and circumstance, God does not look and say, oh, I'm going to have to bring somebody else or something else. No, we are the problem solvers. We are God's tool, his resource for these situations and circumstances. That's what he sees when he looks at you, first and foremost. It's your baseline. So how do we fit that into daily life? How do we fit that into who we are as a church? Okay. Here's my story. Here's what triggered all this. 2-3 weeks ago, I was in Flagstaff, and I'm in the Wendy's drive-through line. My bosses, my daughter and son-in-law, They pushed me hard. So I had to do some fast food eating. So I'm in the Wendy's drive-through line. There's probably 8 or 10 cars. It's right at lunch. It's busy. The guy in front of me is in a Jeep. And it's an open-top Jeep, so he can see everything, and it's not like a vehicle like when you go through the drive-through. You have a window like this, and that window has to slide up to the speaker before you can talk, right? We've kind of moved through, and it's busy. Did I say that? Okay, you need to understand it's busy. The lady in front of him had a small car, and she gave her order, and she pulled forward respectfully. In other words, there was a small gap between her and the car in front of her, right? Because she obviously, was respectful, didn't just come up and, put herself right there. And the guy in the Jeep's going like this, because he's nowhere close to the speaker. He's nowhere close to the speaker. However, if he gets that additional 1.5 feet that she could do, he probably could yell to the speaker and get his order put in. Although it's not going to get there any faster. He's not going to get it any quicker or anything else. But he's waving. And he's going, hey, lady. And he's going like this. I should stop for a second and mention that his bumper sticker carries a church logo on it. Okay? He had to probably sit maybe 60 seconds. His arms never stopped moving for those 60 seconds. And he kept wriggling in his seat trying to get this lady to move forward that 1.5 feet. So when she finally moved, because the 3 cars in front of her finally moved, he pulled up to the speaker, and the lady in the speaker says, "Can I take your order, please?" And he goes, "I apologize. We were having this problem out here because the person in front of me doesn't know proper etiquette when in line." Goes on to the lady about why he had not been able to give his order 60 seconds earlier. And he's saying it loud enough so that everybody basically in line can hear it. And you can see the little side mirror, the lady's going like this, and she's looking at him, and she's got this look on her face like, good Lord, what is this guy's problem? So then he gives his order, right? And he pulls forward. Now, as I can say, I think what I want to say is this drive-through line was not properly designed. It was a half a car off. Because as he's pulled forward, now his back tailgate is right almost just past that speaker. And so I pull up respectfully. I got a 1.5 feet like this. And he's going in his Jeep, he's going like this. And I'm looking at him and I'm going, no. I'm not going to yell my order to the lady, and I'm not going to get it any quicker than that. And so for the 60 seconds till the next car goes, he keeps looking at me in the mirror going, like this. And it's like, oh my gosh. And he's got the bumper sticker on it the whole time. And I'm sitting there, my heart is breaking, and I'm thinking, what church does this guy represent? Seriously, what kind of church? And the cars behind me can see this guy in the scene that he's creating, and they can see the bumper sticker. And I'm thinking, what do we represent to the world? People who stand there and say it's got to be made right, who look at situations that are wrong, and their heart just kind of goes, oh, God, what can we do? Did you understand? That's not what God put us in the line to solve. Hello? That is not one of the solutions that we're supposed to be in there trying to fix. In fact, we aren't supposed to judge people and their actions. That's not the solutions He put us in. As a church, we need to function in that. Just some sidelines. Genesis 1, I think it's verse 26. God's saying, after He does creation, He looks and He says, I need to make man in my image. And actually, the correct terminology is there, in our image. The Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Not only that, and our likeness. I've got to do some research on this. Because the next verse says, so he created them, that's us, in his singular image. I don't know what happened to the likeness. That's a secret, I think, and there's something hidden there, and we need to discover it. The Bible does not just do things like that. But what we need to grasp is, whose image were you made in? You were made in God's image. And actually, that word image, you know how I love to do word stuff, right? That word image is not like looking in a mirror and seeing a reflection. That word image is more like a prototype. Dave and I understand some of this because we did some jobs where you made a working model. You took an idea and you created this working model and you created this prototype, and you kept functioning off this prototype until you got something that was just exactly what you wanted, and then everything else that was made off that prototype. That's the term image. So God says, I'm the prototype. And everything is made according to that prototype. So you weren't just made as a reflection. You were made with the hearts and the soul and the the functionality, if I can say that, of God. So that when you see situations and you look at things, you know how sometimes it comes up inside you? It's because that's how God is. And he sees that, and he responds to that. And you were made according to that prototype, in that image. It's part of our DNA. It's part of who we are. So to understand us and our motivations and those things inside us, and am I connecting dots? I got dots here. Okay? We're problem solvers, we're solutions, we're resources to God, but also at the same time we're made in his image. So we have that functionality of God, how he sees things, what motivates him. As a church, this is who we're supposed to be. Isaiah 58. Get there, we'll get there, okay? There is no us and them with God. Do you understand that? We've done this. This is something, and you can go back and revisit some of those sermons that we've talked about. When God poured out his Spirit, when God pours out his Spirit, and when he's going to pour out yesterday, today, and forever, right? That process of God pouring out his Spirit. Does he choose just Christians to pour his Spirit out on? He pours out on the just and the unjust at the same time, the righteous and the unrighteous. Because to God, there is no us and them. When he functioned, and there's also part of creation, you know that, and there's a scripture that says, and the slain lamb, who's the slain lamb? That's Jesus. And the slain lamb was done at the foundation, the beginning of the world. Jesus wasn't slain at the beginning of the world, was he? But at the beginning of the world, the plan for Jesus being slain was inputted into that DNA. So God, when he sees things, he does things for everybody. So at the beginning of time, he planned for Jesus to sacrifice for everybody, not just for a select few. There is no us and them in God. It's we. You understand that? Okay? When he looks at sinners and Gentiles, when he looks at all of creation, it's his. And when he's motivated, when he's moved, when he's touched, it's for all of creation. We need to get rid of the us and them that somehow has come into the church today. That's important. Because God's heart is our heart. Do you understand that? We're made according to that prototype. We don't just reflect God. We actually were made as a functioning model of what's important to God. You need to understand that. Inside us, our spirit is a functioning spirit like God's. Sees injustice and cries out. I'm not saying that we are God. Do you understand that? Don't go there with me. But we're made in his image. We were made after that prototype. Functioning. This is the difference. Maybe you're not catching it. If I look in a mirror, can that image do anything? That image doesn't do anything unless I do it. And all it does is copy me. And if I grab a pen, it's not really grabbing a pen. It's just showing me grabbing a pen. We're not that kind of image with God. We're coming off the assembly line looking just like the prototype. Functioning. You don't have a car come off the assembly line going, well, I can't move because I'm just a reflection of that car. No, we hop in the car and drive. Okay? When God made us, he didn't make this reflection. He made a functioning model of him. Do you understand that? Okay, get that, because there's something inside us that wants to function. Okay, Isaiah 58. Are you with me? Am I losing you? Am I the only one that's kind of confused? No, just kidding. No. I'm trying to carry you to this place, okay? And I don't want to leave any of us behind because it's important. So, Isaiah 58 in verses 6 through 9. Is this not the fast that I have chosen? To loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo the heavy burdens, to let the oppressed go free, that you break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry, that you bring to your house the poor who are cast out? When you see the naked, that you cover him, and not hide yourself from your own flesh? Okay, is this not the fast? Is this not the motivation? Is this not the motivation of God? God's heart. And think about that. I want to loose, I want to set free, I want to break. Freedom. 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 Is it not to cover? Is it not to share? I love this. Catch me. And that you bring to your house the poor who are cast out. Okay, so here's the functioning. This is a functioning heart of God. This is the functioning of the prototype. This is part of what the prototype does. Sets the captives free. Breaks all the bondages. Yoke is forced into a situation or circumstance where you're forced to be something that you're really not. Or forced to walk away that you're not supposed, that you weren't supposed to walk. Is this not the functioning prototype that says, I am going to break or set free every, to cover the naked, bring into the house. Okay, then verse 8, then your light shall break forth like the morning. Your healing shall spring forth speedily, and your righteousness shall go before you. The glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard. Then you shall call, and the Lord will answer. You shall cry, and he will say, here I am. Okay, for who did the bondages get broken? For who those captives get set free? For who does that yoke get broken off? Who? All of us. The world. Then your light shall break forth. Then your healing shall spring. The functionality of this prototype is that all be set free. All be set free. All situations, all circumstances. Okay, so this is something that we need to understand. This is something we need to grasp. Let's read more. Okay, the second part of verse 9. If you take away the yoke from your midst, hello, the pointing of the finger and the speaking wickedness. Do you understand what this is saying? If you stop making people try to fit by putting yokes on it. Do you understand the yoke? I could put a yoke on us as a church saying, this is how we have to be. My yoke that I want to put on you is, this is how God is. I'm not going to put my yoke on you. Churches have done that. Pastors have done that. But this is, if you will stop putting yokes on people, if you will stop the pointing of fingers and the speaking wickedness, if you extend your soul to the hungry and satisfy the afflicted soul, then your light shall dawn in the darkness, and your darkness shall be as the noonday. The Lord will guide you continually and satisfy your soul in drought and strengthen your bones. You shall be like a watered garden, like a spring of water whose waters do not fail. For who? Just a question. And like a spring of water whose waters do not fail, those from among you shall build the old waste places. You shall raise up the foundations of many generations. Of who? Hello? Who's it talking about? The world. And you shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to dwell in. Can I just emphasize one point on this, and you just grasp it? This isn't for Christians. This is for the world. God's heart is that the world would function. God's heart is for the world to be set free. Is there a requirement here to accept God for the freedom to happen? Is there a requirement here to accept God to have streets to dwell in? The repairer of the breach. Whose breach? Do you catch what I'm saying? God's heart is not an us and them. God's heart is for a we. We need to understand that God looks at this as a we, and that God's heart is for this world to get better with no conditions on it. Okay, is this not the fast I have chosen? Do you understand that when Isaiah says this, this is what he's fasting for? Who does the work? You need to establish this. Who does the work? God does the work. As you contend for God to do his work, and it begins to happen because you have created an atmosphere for God to work in. Hello? Where did you bring the poor? To your home. As you create an atmosphere for God to work in, and he sets people free, and he breaks the bondages, and he breaks the yoke, then you and your light shall spring forth, and your healing shall spring forth. You will be called repairers of the breach. You should be called, you're going to build streets, paths for people to dwell in. That's part of what we're called to do. It's part of what this church is called. See, can I create an image for you in your mind? We're a place of refuge. Hello? We are a place of refuge. We are a place where people can come who have all the other stuff. They are in bondage. They have been yoked. They are in oppression. They are naked. They are poor. They are hungry. And we provide a place of refuge for them to come. Not with a caveat that they get saved, but a caveat that we are going to supply them a place to come and be accepted. A place where they can be normal. Does that make sense? Where they're not judged. A place where we hold hands with them and let God work on their lives. Because who's doing the work? Okay, we're not in the drive-through saying, you got to straighten up. You're not doing things. We had a problem out here where something wasn't... do you know, is there any sort of appropriation of how you're supposed to... your etiquette in a drive-through? I've never read anything like that. I wanted to go up and say... Actually, what I want to do is go rip his bumper sticker off and wrap it around his mouth. I'm sorry, Lord. Actually, I wanted to really sit down with him and say, hey, who are you trying to reach? And what message are you trying to reach him with? My heart broke, actually. I got so many different places. Do you know the story of Nehemiah? Nehemiah was a priest. If you read Nehemiah, you read basically God chose Nehemiah to rebuild his city. The walls have been destroyed. There was no protection for his people. They were scattered. They were under siege, under attack. And God put it in Nehemiah's heart to rebuild his city, to rebuild his place for his people. I think if you read the story of Nehemiah, and I think the first 4 verses, it shows why God chose Nehemiah. Nehemiah gets a message that his city had been destroyed. And Nehemiah weeps for his city. It's not an us and them. It's a we. We are God's people. We, those few here in these seats, have a better understanding. But we are all God's people. And when God pours out, he's pouring out for all of us. And when God weeps, he weeps for all of us. And when he wants people set free, he wants all of us set free. Nicodemus, Matthew 3, is a Pharisee. Is a Pharisee a good term? We don't have good terms for Pharisees because Pharisees were, and the scriptures portrayed as these religious men who were all about the law and were actually forcing yokes on people, saying this is how you must be. But here's a Pharisee, Nicodemus, who comes in the middle of the night to ask Jesus a question. His question basically is you're different. What's up? How can I be born again? And Jesus spends all night answering Nicodemus's questions. This is a Pharisee. Think about it. Think about what people do we kind of put a bad label on right now? Politicians? Okay. So here's a politician who in the middle of the night comes to Jesus and says, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten in months, weeks, years. And Jesus feeds him. Who are we to know the hearts of the men and women around us? Who are we to know what's going on and how often these people have not been fed or how hungry they are? We cannot judge them and tell them that they have to do things. Do you know that you are going to have, here's my prophetic, you are going to have some crazies. They're going to come into this building, they're going to come into your lives. They're not looking for reactions. They're not looking for you to correct them. They're not looking for you to say, hey, that is a wrong. They're looking for a place of refuge. A place of trust where they can stop the crazy. Hear God and be set free. Can I carry this image across to you? Can you just kind of go forward in the future with me for a second and see our society and the chance that it's going to get a little crazier? Are you with me? That wasn't hard, was it? Oh, there we are. Okay, we're here. So in that craziness, how do I want to say this? There's no place to run, there's no place to hide in society today. If you go to society is going to tell you, you got to do this, you got to be this, the yokes society has right now, there are so many of these yokes. Okay, you don't know who you are if you're a man or a woman. Okay, then we're going to label you this, and now you have the ability to do these crazy things. In fact, they're going to promote craziness to be accepted. They do. They already do. And it's not going to get softer. It's going to get stronger. I'm warning you. I'm kind of, if I can talk about this beforehand, when it happens, we won't have that like, what did you say? I had a young man come in. I remember. I had a young man come in my office. And he said, my mom says I have to see you. And actually the mom sat down with me and says, okay, this is what I want you to do. Okay, well, I'm not going to open any of that up, but this is the mom says, here, I'm going to send my son to you and this is what I want you to do. He and this girl are in this place, and they don't need to be in this place. They needed to be in this place. Actually, he needs to be here, and she needs to be gone. And I've elected you to be the one to tell him. Okay, you got the picture? So the he comes in and sits down. And he's got the girl with him. And they're like, okay, we're supposed to counsel with you or whatever. It's like, okay, sure. What's going on? Well, you're supposed to tell us stuff. I said, no. I'm here for you. What do you want to tell me? Well, my mom says that you're supposed to counsel us in this where we're at. What is it you want from me? Well, my mom says you have everything for us. No. And all of a sudden, she starts in. This is how we are. And she starts labeling and sharing events and circumstances that they were involved in that were not appropriate. I'm trying to just cover all this, right? My granddaughter's right there. You understand? And I heard the Lord say, do not react. Because I wanted to go, oh my God, what do you think you're doing? Drugs were involved, some other stuff. And he's sitting there, and as she starts going in, he got this little like, this is cool. This is what we are. This is what we're doing. What are you going to do about it? So they start, and next thing I know, it became a bragging session where he and she were both kind of, okay, your hair didn't curl on this one. How about this? Well, you didn't curl. How about this? And how about this? And I just sat there and I just kind of said, okay. We get all done. You know, they kind of got to this place where they were just kind of like, and I said, so, what do you want from me? And she looked at me and she said, well, she looks at him, she goes, I think we want to know if we're supposed to be together. She looked at him and he said, yeah, we're talking about marriage, and I don't know if we're supposed to marry each other. And I said, well, let's talk about love. Do you love each other? And the next thing you know, we started having this conversation about their intimate moments and how they felt about each other and the fights they were having and some of their lack of common ground. And they were having this kind of very open, honest conversation with each other. Long story short, okay, a month later they broke up. Went about their separate ways. That was 15 years ago, 17 years ago. So this summer I'm playing golf with a gentleman. Got a family, he's married, he's doing really well. He said, hey, you remember that day in your office? Oh yeah, I won't ever forget that day. I did say that. Should have seen the notes I wrote myself after they left. Oh my God! OMG, right across, big ones. OMG across the top. It's like, woo! You know. Do you remember that day in your office? Yeah, I do. I didn't react then either, right? He goes, I loved that you provided us a place to let our hair down and be who we were and to find out if that's who we really wanted to be. Now, I got to tell you, that was not 17 years ago. That was not me. I wanted to scream, what are you doing? I wanted to scream, what are you doing? I wanted to do everything the mom had said to do. And it was the mom of the boy. But God said to me, no, just listen. Don't react. Just listen. And I just provided them a refuge. I just provided them a refuge. Because in their life, and this was 17 years ago, they had no place to run. They had no place to hide. What they were doing is they were hiding in their immoralness. Do you understand? They were hiding in their actions because they had no other place to hide. They had no place of refuge. Who's called to be the refuge for this world? Who's called to be the place where they come and find freedom? We are. Part of your story inside you is not only this awesome man or woman who has the capabilities of providing an atmosphere to bring things back to rightness, because that's the model That's the prototype that we're made after. But we are not supposed to do it. God is. We provide them a place of acceptance, a place of trust. I was at a pastor's meeting recently, and one of the pastors said to me, he said, our church is focusing on invading Williams with God's love. And all the other pastors were like, yeah. And I said it too. It's like, of course, I want to invade Williams with God's love. As I'm driving home from that meeting, God says to me, I wonder what that looks like to those that don't know me. When you say, we're going to invade Williams, their hearts probably went poof, like, what? That sounds like a declaration of war. And their reaction, where do I go? Where do I run? Where do I hide from you? Because you've called war on me. And I was like, in my heart, because I'd never seen that before. We need to invade this city. I've said that. With God's love. His presence needs to invade this city. And it's true. But I've never seen it from that perspective before. Where we're actually calling war out. Because it's an us and them. That's an us and them statement. And God is beginning to do something. And so in this process, I had this gentleman do this in front of me in the drive-through. And actually, like I said, I wanted to go squeeze his neck and something pop off. But I didn't do it. And God kind of stopped me and says, I like your heart. Because that's what the church is supposed to be. But he's one of the church. He's one of us. He's a we. And all of a sudden things begin to change. And I saw this picture. Actually, it was 2 nights later. I'm watching TV. And one of the ads comes up. Political ads. I'm just going to say, I'll just leave that. And you guys, there's enough of them out there. I'm sure you've got one of them in your head right now. One of those political ads. And my heart went, oh my gosh. Why do we have to just completely annihilate the other person to try to promote ourselves? And all of a sudden, God gave me this vision. Boom, like this. And it was like, society is going to get a little worse. It's going to be like the Jesus movement of the 70s, where society kind of got a little crazy. And the churches that really thrived were the churches that embraced those crazies when they came in. Gave them a place of refuge. And didn't judge them by their hair or what they smelt like or any of that other stuff, because they were different. But just said, you know what? God loves you. And just wants to meet you right where you're at. You don't have to change for God. He wants to set you free. Isaiah 58. We're just going to provide a place where you're accepted. A place where you feel you can trust us. And all of a sudden I saw a new version. And you can label the terms however you want, but there are enough craziness going out there right now. Gays and the lesbians and the transgenders. I mean, just how many more of those crazy can you go? And they're going to come in and they're going to watch to see if you react. Because they're looking for a place to hide. They're looking for a place to run to. Because society has already put all these yokes and stuff on them. And they've embraced most of them. They're not looking for you to break their yokes. What they're looking for is a place of refuge to let God do his work. to be accepted. In fact, I can guarantee there are some of the strongest hearts looking for God in those groups than there are in any other group. The Nicodemuses, who are going to run in the middle of the night and say, all right, Jesus, are you real? Is this real? And Jesus didn't say, you know what, you got to quit being a Pharisee. He didn't say any. In fact, do you know who it was that ministered to Jesus after his death and brought the myrrh? It was Nicodemus. Because God had touched him by answering all his questions late at night. I think Nicodemus basically has come up to Jesus and said, you know what? I'm starving. I'm starving. I haven't had a real meal from God in a long, long time. And what you're saying and what you're doing smells and tastes wonderful. Can I have a meal? And Jesus said, yeah. You understand my little parable there? That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to be happening. And I want us to be a church where people are trusted with their stuff. That don't flinch when the crazies come in. A place where people can find God. Not bumper stickers. And that's judgment. I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying. My heart is that they find real Christians. Places of acceptance. Places that homes are open. Where they can come and have a meal. Because they are starving. They are starving. They're naked. You know what I'm saying? Spiritually. And they just want covering. How many of us would flip out if someone walked in naked? I mean, Isaiah 58, we say that. That would be really funny, okay? To share your bread with the hungry, that you bring to your house the poor who are cast out. When you see the naked, did they come and say, cover me? No. That when you see the naked, you cover them. How many of us would absolutely flip out if someone was just walking around naked? And now just imagine these hearts with all their stuff. And I guarantee that they've bought into most of that stuff. Those yokes, they're on them, and they're locked and sealed. And they're walking the path that they've chosen. But they want God, too. And we're not to judge. We're not to say, you've got to be set free before you get God. That's not what my scriptures say. And God doesn't say, I won't have anything to do. Actually, God says, those are the ones I'm called to. And we need to provide them a place of shelter, a place of refuge, a tower, if you will, where they can come and just sit in the shadow of the Almighty. And let Him do the work. Part of your story, part of what's inside you, is to be this place of refuge. I love Isaiah again because he starts off by saying, is this not the fast that I've chosen? I've set my heart for my people, for my city, for my country. Do you know that we are called locally, but we are called beyond locally as a church? I'm talking specifics right here, the church at Canyon Chapel. We are called locally. We are called to Williams. Yes, we are called to be a place, but we are called also to reach our nation. We are in a place where the nation comes to us. And to be accepted there. We actually, if you just take that, we are called to the nations, where the nations actually come to us. Every year we get confronted with the nations as they come and visit. Not right here in the streets, every day. And we are called to the nations as a place of refuge. It's not just crazy here. Hello? It's crazy all over the world. And Jesus has called us to this world. So I want to empower you to realize who you are, to realize what prototype you're copied off of. To be able to stand up spiritually and say, no, this person gets refuge. In my presence, in my home, in our church, that person gets refuge. This is a them and God situation. This is a we. We're in this together. Am I making sense? Can you taste the prophetic part of this, that God says they're going to come? And he's saying you need to talk before they come. Before they come in naked, you need to talk. So that we're not running and just saying, we're hey, come on in. We've expected you. We're waiting for you. Hello? Why don't you stand?